Hello, I'm Kats, and welcome to today's video. So today we're doing another free-to-play champion showcase, this time talking about the ultimate reward from the Chimera clan boss, Embrys the Anamoly. Despite being a mythical, he is a champion that you will obtain eventually just by partaking in the Chimera at your own pace. Even if you're doing it on normal mode, you're eventually going to get him on your account. So even if he feels like he's miles away, maybe this video will give you something to look forward to in the future when you eventually unlock him on your account. So Embrys is a very powerful champion, at least in the current meta of things, because of one ability on his base form, and he's also very strong in his alternate form. You can see here on the base form he is a support, so he's more of a debuffer type champion here, although we'll talk about the ins and outs of his kit. And then on the alt form here, you can see there he is a HP based damage dealer with a massive axe. But let's start things off on form 1, leading off with the A1 here. It's an AoE attack, and it will destroy each target's max HP by 3%, stacks up to 30%, so that's just a nice thing. It will also increase the duration of one render debuff on all enemies, and it cannot be resisted if there are any necrosis stacks. We'll come back to necrosis when we talk about his passive. On the A2, it's an AoE where it will place True Fear on all enemies for 1 turn and decrease attack for 2 turns, and once again these cannot be resisted if there are any necrosis stacks out there, and this will grant him an extra turn, which is a pretty solid opening move depending upon whether or not your enemies have polymorph. However, his most enticing ability is on the A3, and it is a massive wall of text, but essentially it will remove Stone Skin and replace them with True Fear. It will remove block debuffs, place it with block buffs, and etc. It will replace all of the positive affecting buffs and flip them into their negative buffs. In addition, it will also steal 5% of each target's turn meter for each buff converted into a debuff by the skill, and it will decrease the turn meter of all enemies by 20%. Now, this is where it gets a little bit misleading, but it says these effects cannot be resisted if enemies have any necrosis stacks, once again, but that only applies to the turn meter steal and the turn meter decrease, meaning if you don't build him with any accuracy, you will still get this effect here. As we'll see in my build, he's not really indexed super high into accuracy, and he's still able to slap off Stone Skin as well as do everything else here. So now, what does necrosis do? So whenever an enemy is killed, 1 necrosis stack will be placed on all other enemies, and these cannot be blocked or resisted, and they can only be removed by reviving said dead allies. So necrosis essentially is, think of it like a HP burn or poison. It does a fixed amount of one's health, but it can stack like Pinpoint can, depending on how many enemies are dead. So if there are 3 enemies dead, you will have 3 necrosis stacks on the soul reviving person, or soul surviving person rather. So in this case, on his passive, he will activate necrosis stacks at the start of his turn and the end of his turn, which again can synergize well when you have the A2 at your disposal, because you get an extra turn, meaning that you will make the necrosis stacks proc multiple times in that time domain. So we'll definitely be seeing the utility of the A3, but I also want to highlight his alt form here, because this is again the nuker form. So starting once again with the A1, it attacks one enemy, places an extra hit if the target has any necrosis stacks, so it can become a double hitter, and this can place a block revive if this attack kills an enemy. So that is not dependent on the extra hit. If they are so low that you can hit them with 1 hit, it will still place the block revive. But of course, if you can get a double hit, you're more likely to kill the target, and thus you're more likely to place the block revive. I'm going to highlight the A3 first before we get to the A2, because that's typically the sequence you will run when you're gumming or using this form here. So this will swap HP with an enemy. If the target is a boss, it will fully restore his destroyed max HP and fully heal the champion instead. Each time this skill is used, it will increase his ignored defense effects by 10% all the way up to 50% whilst in the alternate form. And lastly, this will grant an extra turn. So there's no harm or foul with using this ability as an opener once you get into form 2, because you're guaranteed an extra turn, and you will at the very least get 10% ignored defense added to whatever you might have depending on your build. And then you can come in and follow it up either with the A1 or the big AoE here on the A2, where it will deal double damage to enemies whose accuracy is lower than this champion's, or it will ignore 50% of each target's defense whose accuracy is equal to or higher than this champion. So you're going against a debuffer support, you're going to ignore half of their defense. You add that to a Savage set, you're starting at 75%, and of course if you add Helm Smasher on top of that as well, you have a potential to ignore 100% of their defense. And if you're going against someone who has lower accuracy, so probably a nuker for example, someone who's relatively squishy already, then you will deal double damage to them, which obviously makes it a lot more likely to kill someone with low accuracy. But it doesn't quite end just there. On On the passive here, it's a really strong and useful passive. We'll try to take advantage or show you cases where you can take advantage of the power of this passive here. But when this champion dies, it will reflect damage equal to 50% of the fatal hit back to the attacker, including any surplus damage. So in most cases, if you kill him when he's in the alt form, you will also kill yourself. And then of course, because you killed them, you will place necrosis on all the remaining alive allies. And then the active part of it, which is on the 5-turn cooldown, is that once you're about to get killed by a fatal hit, it will preempt it, kind of like Godseeker and Nere's passive. You will place Revive on Death on yourself, meaning that they would murder themselves with this part of the passive and you would come back to life with 30% health. The last thing to mention is that he does have an aura HP in all battles by 35%. So how do I have my Embrys build? I'm definitely more so optimizing him for the alt form, so he is built like a nuker. However, you could build him as a support, build him relatively tanky, build him really fast, and he could just be effectively a debuffer for you to slap off Stone Skin and stuff like that. But in my case, like I said, he's more of a nuker. So his build at the moment is, pretend this is 4-piece, but it is 3-piece supersonic. The goal is eventually to have it be 4-piece supersonic so he can cut in and kind of surprise people. But of course, lethal set, the super savage set here to go with that, him being a nuker. In terms of the total stats here on the base form, 73,000 on the HP, 2,500 on the defense, 280 on the speed, so relatively quick, 100 or full crit rate here, 254 on the crit damage, and then a little bit of accuracy, but not really all that much. And if we just switch forms here, you can see that he has a little bit more HP, 80,000 there, a little bit lower defense, and he's a little bit slower as well, and a little bit higher on the crit damage. Running through the gear pieces really quickly, I do have HP on the banner. I did happen to get this today, that's why it's level 12. I'm waiting until tomorrow. There's a gear enhancement going live, and so I will definitely take that to level 16. So he's going to get a little bit more HP, but the supersonic banner there, we have a reaction on the amulet, crit damage, which is good. We have HP on the ring, not amazing, but I just don't have that many HP rings apparently in Knights Revenant. They're of good quality. And then if we move on to the artifacts, we got speed on the boots with speed. We got some crit rate, crit damage, some accuracy, flat defense. We have HP on the chest, speed, crit rate, and crit damage. We have crit damage on the gloves. We got some crit rate, some speed, some HP, and some defense. Perfect pair of gloves for an HP based nuker. Got speed and crit on the shield. We've got speed, crit rate, speed, crit rate, and crit damage on the helmet. And lastly, we have speed, crit damage, and a little bit of HP on the weapon. In terms of the relic, I do have one of my Hatter's Reserve on him. Ideally, I'd have like I mean, if you have multiple wands, he's good for that, but I happen to only have one. And Aspect of Seroth is also pretty decent on him as well to kind of keep him alive and buy you time to do something else with your abilities. You may have already spied it here, but I do have him unbooked in Form 1, but I do have him booked in Form 2, and I do recommend at least starting off that way, depending upon how many mythical tomes you have, because the old form is a little bit more important. On the base form, once you use your A3 once, you slap off Stone Skin. That's basically the extent of his utility for that, and so you're better off just optimizing the damage in Form 2. And lastly, let's go through the masteries really quickly. He is built for, or like an arena nuker, and so we have the offense tree and the defense tree. Let's start off with the defense tree because it's a little bit more straightforward, but we have nice shape here, a little bit less damage from crit, resurgent, of course, delay death, a little bit of tankiness, and then of course retribution, because if he does survive in the alt form and counterattacks with A1, he does have that chance to block revive, which can be very devastating for your enemies. On the offense tree, pretty standard stuff, but we're coming straight down the left hand side and the middle side. I opted to go down the path of optimizing for speed, so he gets Whirlwind of Death, more speed when he kills people, Cycle of Violence to reduce the cooldowns, and then ultimately ending on Blood Shield, because he's HP based, so having him have a shield 50% of his max HP would be a pretty sizable shield whenever he kills people. And Narcisse are a lot less prevalent than they used to be, so I'm not as afraid or not as expectant of a Narcisse in the wild here. But of course, ultimately we're ending on Helm Smasher coming through Methodical, which is good again for the A1 on the alt form, but to ignore as much defense as possible there. So one of the main areas where I use him is of course in the arena. That is what he's primarily built for. So let's go ahead and showcase him in a couple of fights here in Tag Team Arena, then we'll hop over to Classic Arena as well. So the first set of fights we're going to be using him in are against these three teams here, and Embrys is going to be featured on the third team. We're sending him into another Embrys by chance, but this is a team that I definitely expect to be in Stone Skin, so we'll see if we can take advantage of the fact that we can remove their Stone Skin. However, I'm also bringing in Mezamel to try and block revive and stuff like that, get rid of their champions. But I guess I should mention block revive is really strong. Even though Embrys has it in his kit on his own, it's also helpful to bring in other block revive, because of course you set the team up, the enemy team up with with necrosis stacks that can never ever be removed because that champion cannot be revived. So I'll try to win my way through the other 2 fights, and then I'll highlight him in the 3rd fight. All right, so here we are in fight number 3, and yeah, just as we expected, full stone skin team. So we're going to try and get around that. In this case, I'm going to try and sheep the Freya just to get rid of her annoying passive, and then we're going to try and take out the Embrys here. So let's see if we can do that. Oof, okay, UDK died as well, so maybe we won't get to see everything that we wanted to see there. I didn't expect him to be that squishy, but nonetheless, here we can use the A3 here, slap off the stone skin, and now we don't have to worry about that kind of hiding the champion. So that's one of the main utilities of this champion, even in the base form here, so we can take advantage of that. You don't have to worry about building him with accuracy. He just does it automatically, and it's really handy to just have a delete stone skin button. And so in this case, we have some necrosis stacks on her. You can see there it's on there for 3 turns, so let's go ahead and make her a little bit squishier there. Do that, got a couple of procs, and then just to bring it to a close here, we're going to put him in form 2, and I just like the satisfaction of block revive, so we're going to go for it with the A1 and block revive there on the Elva as well. All right, fight number 2, we're going to try and use him into a Marius composition. He's actually relatively strong against Marius, because typically you'd think that Marius would be strong into mythicals, and he is in general because of the enfeeble, but as we noted, Embrys in the alt form has an extra turn ability, and so he can get rid of the enfeeble assuming it's on there for 1 turn. But even if it's not, you can take advantage of the fact that you can swap HP with an enemy. So if Marius, or when Marius counterattacks and you swap forms, he brings you low, and then you swap HP with him or someone else, and you're basically back to full HP. Or even better yet, if you're already kind of low, you change forms and Marius counterattacks and kills you in the alt form, then your passive procs, he murders himself, and you have revive on death for yourself, which is another way you can try to deal with Marius by being in the alt form. So hopefully my Arbiter is faster with intimidating presence than this team here, otherwise we're in for some trouble. But once again, I'll come back to you guys once we get to team 3. All right, so here we are with team 3. So we are faster, we got lucky in that regard. So we're going to try and boost up here. We are going to use our Armons to control his Armons. Hopefully we don't get polymorphed. Great. We, I guess, wand of submission on somebody. We don't really know who. Then we're going to change forms here. Marius is kind of down for the count, so we are going to do the block revive on the Carnage to get away with that. And then in this case, we're going to try and slap off that stone skin off of the Duchess. So there we go. So yeah, she's free to use her ability. Doesn't really matter. And then we'll try and deal with Marius here once we get a chance. Not really caring about that polymorph. So we're going to A1 here. And then we're going to try and actually, well, just for the sake of the example, we're going to try to kill Duchess here. She dies to necrosis. Excellent. I'm going to purposefully change forms and make Marius attack us. So we can do that and see. Oh, no, he didn't place it. So unfortunate, but it doesn't really matter. So we're going to do this. If he did place Enfeeble, it wouldn't matter because we can do the extra turn here and we can get rid of it. And now we just kill them with the Atomize there. Boom. So even, you know, again, you can use him into a Marius, and I do recommend that you use him into Marius because that's a very strong counterplay. All right. So this is going to be the 3rd fight. We're going to try to take him into team 3. So I do suspect once again, they're going to be in a decent amount of stone skin, but I'm a little bit worried about the speed of the Armons. We'll see if we're faster when we get to fight 3. I'll join you guys once again once we get there. All right, so here we are versus team 3, and thankfully we are a little bit faster, but you can see there's a couple of stone skin people on this squad. So we're going to try and reduce the turn meter of the enemy Armons. That way he can't do his things. Of course, Narcisse is protected by Ancora, but we can take advantage of the fact that his turn meter is decreased. And in this case, we're going to send Mezamel after the Embrys and try to take him out. Ignore that stone skin. There we go. He's dead. And then here we can go ahead and slap off that stone skin on Ancora. And she is going to cleanse and turn meter fail. So hopefully we can get a little bit faster here. Oh, okay. That's fine. We're still in control here. We're going to, let's see, his turn meter is a bit higher than mine, so we're going to sheep the Narcisse just to take him out for a little bit. Let's see if we can kill the, there we go, we killed him. And then we can just try and take control of the fight here. We get some activations of the necrosis stacks. Then we can increase this, and then we can go for the kill shot on the Ancora. Block revive, boom, dead forever. So there we go, basically on lock. So once again, showcasing that he's an excellent way to get rid of enemy stone skin, which can be very tricky to deal with, especially if you don't have some sort of HV burn explosion type team. All right, so the last tag team we're going to fight I want to show you in is using him as a setup champion for other champions champions on your team. So even though he's going to be built in the exact same way, we're going to use him as a setup for Harima in this case. So we have increased defense from Sify. Harima is going to be our primary DPS. He is faster than my Harima in this build. And then we have Fabian for the lockout as well. So let's go ahead and see him in action against Team 1 here. I'm anticipating once again that this looks like, at least to me, a team that's going to be sitting in a bunch of stone skin. So we're going to try and get rid of as much of that stone skin as possible. So it's on UDK, it's on Python, all good. So we can come in here, we can lock them out. Obviously Fabian has a chance to reduce it himself, but assuming that didn't happen, like it didn't for UDK, because of course that's unreliable, guaranteed we can slap it off by doing that, and Harima's passive will prevent that from happening. So we can basically kill whoever we want. In this case, let's go for the Reviver. Might as well take out the Python. We probably will activate Rhodos, but ideally we kill everybody else, and then Rhodos is left alone by his lonesome, and he can't really do anything on his own. He can do a little bit of damage to Sify, but yeah, so that's him as kind of the setup champion. So if you build him more like a support, this would be where he would function. You go into a team that you anticipate or you expect to have a lot of stone skin in, he slaps it all off, and then the table is set for your nukers in that way. So this is a great way to use him as well, if you may or may not have the gear to build him out as a complete, powerhouse nuker, depending on whoever you have on your account. All right, so here we are in Classic Arena. I did want to showcase him into a Taurus and Marichka team because he is uniquely suited to deal with their annoying combination. Of course, we all know by this point that when you attack Marichka when Taurus is on the same team, he's going to do that big, massive damage counterattack, but we can exploit that with Embrys in his alternate form, as we talked about. He will reflect that damage back, having Taurus kill himself. We get Revive on Death, and Embrys comes back to life, and that's a very, very solid way of dealing with that annoying aspect of their synergy. So Taurus will take himself out. So let's go ahead and see that in action here as we go into the Odin team. Hopefully they're not super fast. Okay, we're faster than them, so that we'll take advantage of that. We'll boost up here, and then we're going to change forms, and then we're immediately going to go, instead of using the A3 because I don't want Odin's pass into proc, we're going to just go for the Atomize here, make sure that we hit Marichka. He targets him, boom, and he's dead. It got blocked, but that's fine. We can cut in here, kill the Odin, so we don't have to worry about his passive. And then at this point we could take advantage of the fact that we have a Ancora who's going to protect our Rhodos from pain here. So Taurus is going to counterattack him, but it's fine. We're going to proc the turn and he's not going to be stunned. We're going to kill Odin once again, and then we can basically the fight's over at this point. So there we go, we can deal with that. So the main thing, we sacrificed him for the greater good, but as you saw there, we just were able to exploit the fact that using his passive in the alternate form, Taurus is literally just going to take himself out when you're using him into a Taurus and Marichka combination, which again is a very, very useful way to have a Taurus take out himself. The only thing you have to worry about is if the Taurus is in stone skin, then you might be SOL as far as having that be your opening move. Since I have a bit of extra time, let's do one quick live arena fight and kind of see if we can make use of him here. Hopefully they don't pick him before I do, and in fact, if we happen to get the first pick, I'll pick him first, even though my typical opener nowadays is Marius, of course, because of how powerful that champion is. So we get first pick. All right, so we're going to start things off with the Embrys, and we're going to try and deal with whatever the opponent throws at us. So he may or may not be a good champion for this fight. We'll kind of have to see if that is the case. Communist, that's scary, and a 6-star Awakened Sify. Not very happy about that. So we are going to respond with a Ancora and a Galathir. We're going to bring out some of the heavy hitters, of course, because this looks like a real legitimate opponent here. So let's see if we can handle what he has to throw at us. Ideally, we get rid of the bombs, though. I don't really have much of a response to bombs, so we definitely don't want to deal with that. Let's see what this guy is going to choose. Obviously, he has some sort of game plan, I would expect, since he instantly picked these two, but maybe we disrupt him a little bit. Maybe he has Galathir, maybe he doesn't. Okay, he's bringing in the Embrys, he's bringing in the Armands. Armands is, of course, very, very dangerous and very annoying. So in this case, I might actually change things up. We're going to keep these two supports in. If I had to guess, he's probably going to get rid of the Galathir, at least at the current state of things. But we are going to go with one of my Necrets, and then we do need another nuker. So ideally someone who's a little scary. So let's bring out the Nice. So unfortunately, lots of mythicals on this team, but it is live arena, so I'm not going to skimp out on using my best champions to try and deal with whatever the enemy throws at us here. So I think we're kind of relegated, unfortunately, to banning the Armands, and hopefully we get to keep the Galathir. Maybe we scared him off with the Nice. He's a little bit more afraid. Definitely going to get rid of that. that. I'm not as afraid of a Wukong. Yes, he went for the Galathea, which is good and also bad at the same time. So let's see if we can tank the hit here. We're definitely gonna, or they're gonna go first. That's a given. But hopefully we won't just instantly die, and we can have a little bit of a response here. That may or may not be the actual case. But this is my protection set Necret, so we don't have to worry about, or there's a chance I should say, that we don't have to worry about him getting bombed to death when he changes forms here. So let's see what he's going to do. Is he going to try and block active skills, or is it, yes, he is going to try and block active skills. Okay, so if I'm him, I'm going to try and sheep Embrys here. That's probably the best play, just because of, oh no, he's going to go for the AoE. Ooh, that was a big damage. Okay, well, there's a decent chance that Marius just absolutely murders us here. So let's see if that is going to be the case. I think most of them are going to die. Oh, we got lucky there. Resurgent, or I guess Aspect of Seroth procced on Nice there, so he might still survive. No, man, we're just getting lapped here, unfortunately. But, well, I think he still procs his passive here unless we get bombed. Let's see what he does here in the alt form. Okay, a little bit of turn meter decrease. That is fine. I think at this point, even if we swap, we're probably going to die. And the Revive on Death might not save us, but I don't really think we have any other play at this moment. So let's see if we can survive. No, we don't. Unfortunate. Well, we did proc Nice, though. Okay, we are back to life. So we at least got that on our side. So let's see if we can take out some of them, get us back into the fight here a little bit. I think Communus is unfortunately going to come back and blow us up. But maybe, just maybe, there's a chance that we might somehow survive. Oof. Unfortunate there. Oh, actually, wait. Hold on. No, let me do the cleanse here and see if we can cut in, or we can protect. Yes, okay, we got lucky there. We got protection set to proc. We're still in this one. We're still in it. There's still a chance that Wukong can try and sheep. He can try and sheep Nice. It's a risk, but he might be willing to take that risk. So we'll see if we can save this one, which is, it's looking dicey. Okay, there we go. Ideally, he does not sheep us here. If he does, then everything we just set up is going to go away. So weak hit, please, on your 8-2. Or he just sacrifices himself for the greater good. Appreciated, sir. So he has his AoE. He's going to murder himself. There we go. We saw that. And so he took himself out. We don't have the passive any longer, so we can't really take advantage of that aspect of his kit. But nonetheless, he was able to take out Marius, or take Marius with him, which is good. So we get a nice counterattack there with a Nice. We have nice Wukong there, which we can always keep feeding on as far as free kills. So we're definitely going to take advantage of that. She attacked him for some reason. That was risky. Very risky. So now we get another kill. Oh, they're just dead. Okay, there we go. I mean, definitely more of a nice show in this case, but nonetheless, we got to see some aspects of Embrys's kit there, specifically in the alt form going into a Marius. We had Marius take himself out once or twice, and so again, that's just kind of useful to have that passive where he might die a lot, but he also will make the enemies kill themselves. All right, so that is Embrys in various types of arena. Now you can use him in some other areas as well, but predominantly, I would say his kit is more catered towards the arena, so he's definitely a PvP champion. But nonetheless, I have used him in Faction Wars. Of course, he's great as a DPS. He has True Fear, so if you build him with some accuracy on the base form, he could be a little bit of a CC champion. But predominantly, you use him, or you want to use him for the nuking form as a DPS. He can have Necrosis stacks out there, and it's just really, really powerful. Of course, block revive as well. He's useful in all forms of Faction Wars. Obviously, it's probably not going to come into play in normal mode, because if you're still working towards Lydia, you're probably not dealing with Chimera at a high enough level to have farmed him before you get Lydia. But definitely in hardbound Faction Wars, he has proven very, very useful. And then of course, Curse City, if he applies, he's going to be doing the same exact thing. Same thing, he can do CC, but he also can do some damage. And of course, Clan Siege, if you want to run him in a nice Revenant team, set the restrictions on your posts or whatever, he can definitely work and kind of be a little bit of a menace, depending on who your enemies might have in that faction. Or you can just use them as a general DPS for the same reason, or the same purpose of being able to anticipate they're going to be in Stone Skin. You go in with the A3 on the base form, and then you slap all the Stone Skin off. So there you have it. That's going to do it for the free-to-play champion showcase for Embrys the Anomaly, the redeemable champion from farming Chimera clan boss. Let me know in the comment section down below if you have managed to get this guy on your account, and let me know the build that you have him in on your account, although I do anticipate that majority of people, at least those more so in the endgame, are going to be running him in, of course, 4P Stone Skin and 4P Trophy, Savage, and or Lethal. And if you haven't gotten him yet, then instead comment down below how close you are to getting him your fragment total out of 100. As always, if you did find this video helpful, then be sure to hit that like button down below. It really does help out the channel. And also feel free to hit the subscribe button down below if and only if you are enjoying the content overall on this channel for more content just like this one in the future. Thanks for watching and have a good one.